Okay, Orioles fans, I don't want you to get too excited. Just because they have new ownership doesn't mean new moves are going to be happening right. Oh my God, they got Corbin Burnes.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and especially hello, happy Orioles fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I've been an Emmy-nominated television producer who has now been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade. This is my sixth season as a host of the Locked On Podcast Network. And please follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram, or whatever Twitter is called these days. I'm your pal Sully, but Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today. I'm flustered. Live show. Get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. I am absolutely thrilled to be doing this show. We're doing another live one, so if you're watching us on the YouTubes, send us your comments. But I'm not flying solo today. I can't tell you how happy I am to have my guest today, who I have known for literally decades. He's been a guest. I know he's been a guest on the Sully Baseball Show. This might be his first time in Locked On MLB. Not 100% sure, but I am thrilled to bring to the show comedian Clayton Fletcher. How are you, buddy?
I'm great, Sully. Always good to see you. What a great day to have me on with all the big news about Baltimore.
Well, let's just, I know you, and that's why, a complete coincidence, you and I had scheduled to do this show today. And I thought, oh, do you want, it's good news because the news of the ownership yesterday. Yeah, let's have it today. I'm setting this up, and all of a sudden, the news of Corbin Burnes shows up. I have to let everyone know why this is so cool and why I'm a little giddy. I've known Clayton since probably the late 90s, early 2000s. I'm guessing is when we met doing comedy in New York. And he was the single biggest Baltimore Oriole fan I ever met. And this is when being an Oriole fan wasn't cool.
It still isn't.
I know. Okay. But at least, you what I'm saying is this is not a fair weather fan. This is not a fair weather fan. And the fact that you and I are doing this show today is serendipity. And Clayton, before we get too deep into the woods here, just tell people you have a great new special coming up. Great new book is already out. Just tell people a little bit of who you are and why we're talking right now.
Yeah. So I grew up in Baltimore. I've been living in New York for about 25 years. I'm one of the 3 or 4 Orioles fans who live in New York City and have to deal with the obnoxious Yankee fans day in and day out, bragging about how great and rich and expensive their team of all-stars is. And my team would finish in last place 9 years out of 10. But, over the last few years, I'm like, some of these draft picks look pretty good. And, maybe some of these young players are going to turn into something. That Adley Rutschman guy looks pretty good. We've started to have a little bit of excitement in Baltimore. And now here we go. Orioles are doing great. They won 101 games last year. But, yeah, I'm a comedian. I do stand-up. I wrote a book called The ROI of LOL, which teaches business people how to use comedy skills at work. I watch every single Orioles game every single year, even the years when they lost 107 of them. That wasn't fun, but I watched them all anyway. And I have a new comedy special out. It's called Middle Child Syndrome. You can find it on Amazon, Apple TV, anywhere else you might want to watch a comedy special.
When you and I became friends, as I said, I'm going to guess it was probably around 99 or 2000 when the Yankees were in the middle of their great dynasty, and you were there. This was the Charles Johnson, Will Clark, Eric Davis, the Pat Rapp years of Orioledom, and you stood by during those years, and you and I mean, besides the fact that we did comedy shows together and we thought each other were funny. We also hey, good show, yeah. Oh, let's talk baseball for the next 25 minutes.
Yeah,
Baseball.
every
And so,
night, yeah.
and we've remained friends all these years later. I don't remember the last time I physically saw you, and probably it's been over a decade and a half, but yet here we are. Okay, nice to see you, friend. Let's cut. Oh, before we go on, there's one bit of balloon juice I have to go through. The trivia question I had, which was a little bit about Yankee fandom. Who was the last pitcher to earn a postseason save for the New York Yankees? The last pitcher to record a save in the postseason for the Yankees. Do you know who it is?
I have no idea. No.
All right. Well, John Murphy Jr., no surprise, one of my everyday Sullies out there got right. A couple of you got it right. It was Wandy Peralta in 2022, who just signed a deal with the Padres in a weird move because the Yankees kind of need him in there to get him some bullpen depth. And when I saw he signed with the Padres, I thought, that's interesting. That's one of their strengths, which is why I brought him up as a trivia question. All right. Enough. We are going to talk so much Baltimore here. You're going to think that we just finished watching a Wire marathon. Okay. I have a feeling because I saw your tweets about it. I have a feeling that if we went to Baltimore yesterday, the day after the sale was announced, it would have looked like VJ Day.
Totally. Absolutely. I mean, look, 2 billionaires bought the team. Cal Ripken's an owner now. I mean, people are very, very happy about this in Baltimore. They are celebrating.
Yeah, it's funny. I've witnessed the transfer of ownership in several franchises. And here in Los Angeles, when the McCourts were forced to sell, all my Dodger fan friends were like, this is, streamers coming down and everything, because you just knew with LA, they were making moves. They're going like, why are you acting like a small market team? Well, Baltimore's not a small market, and they've been acting. Only the A's, who they make movies about how low their payroll is, had a lower payroll than a 100-win team. And as I said yesterday, well, do you know what? Jeff Cohen, one of my everyday sellers, just put a comment. Let's get right to the point. Does the trade make the Orioles the AL East favorites? Are they now, beyond just the trade, are they now the AL East favorites again?
I mean, the way they dominated the division last year, I think they were already the AL East favorites, at least in my book. But Sully, just going back in the late 90s, the Orioles had the highest payroll in all of baseball.
Yeah.
And really, it was when they moved the team to Washington from Canada that things started to really kind of fall apart in the Baltimore area, because it used to be if you lived in Virginia, in Washington, D.C., you would go up to Baltimore to enjoy baseball. And now all of those fans became Nationals fans. And so that's been hard for us to recover from as a city. But, winning cures all ills. And, the fans started coming back. And, yeah, it's very exciting what's going on. But, yeah, I would say they're the favorites. But I think they were the favorites before this trade.
Right.
I don't know about you.
Well, let me just, before we dissect the trade here for a second, I just want your, this is kind of like where were you and what you were doing when you found out that finally, you were complaining about the Angelos when you and I met.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't have kids then, and my kids are now in college. So it's been a minute. Where did you find out, and how did you react?
Yeah, so I was on Twitter. I know you were supposed to call it X now. I'll still call it Twitter.
It's Twitter.
And I saw that on Twitter, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what we've been waiting for and praying for, But I tried to curb my enthusiasm, if you will, because I said, look, they're not a small market team, but they don't have such a monopoly as they did in the 90s. Just because we have wealthy owners now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to, make all kind of big splashes and, like you said in the intro, Sully. But yeah, this is something that makes sense even for a small market team, because it's a trade. and we're trading from a position of strength. I mean, the Orioles farm system last couple of years ranked number one. It's not close. We have so many prospects. We can't get all these young guys on the field at the same time. So you might as well get what we really need, which is an excellent starting pitcher. A guy with 4 Cy Young, votes every year is fine with me. So I'm very excited about this.
Yeah, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about that move and why I think, you know what? I know we're supposed to temper your enthusiasm here. I think there's reason to be out of your mind enthusiastic.
Okay.
But first, we are going to talk a little bit about our friends at eBay Motors. Now, guess what? Passion, drive, patience. It's what you need to be a Baltimore Orioles fan. And now it's what you need for your ride or die to ride on well. Guess what? eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your over all the parts on your car, you're going to find always what you need, exactly what you're looking for with eBay Fit Guaranteed. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and all the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusive apply. And eBay Motors Guarantee Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Sorry, Blue Jays fans. eBay Motor. Let's ride. Hey, here's a reminder that Locked On has begun the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. We're here with the great Clayton Fletcher, who has been an Orioles fan since they had players who played on their World Series champion team. That's right. They still had Cal Ripken on that squad.
That's right.
I took the Orioles to the woodshed during the trade deadline last year because they desperately need another pitcher. They had more prospects than they had spots for in the major league team. The Red Sox and Yankees weren't going to contend. And I said they had an open lane to fill the need they desperately needed, was to have a frontline starter. And they held on. They hoarded their prospects, and their lack of a frontline starter bit them in the butt in the playoffs against Texas. Now they got Corbin Burnes. All right, yeah. Clayton, your thoughts on Corbin Burnes? And I'm just now, they announced the trade as we're setting up the graphics for this show. So yeah. I still don't know who they traded to get him.
Yeah, so DL Hall. And that's a really good player right there. DL's an excellent pitcher. I think he's got a bright future. He's very young. Who else? Joey Ortiz. Yeah, I mean, these are players that Orioles fans have been excited about for some time. I mean, Ortiz, I believe, just came up for like a cup of coffee last year. But DL's been around. He's been injured, but he's been saying that he's ready for spring training. He's a very good pitcher, and it's not like we gave up nothing. But the fact that we've been, trying to practice austerity and not, overspend on free agents, trying to grow the bats and grow the arms and buy the bats, that old mantra. But this is just a no-brainer. I mean, this doesn't cost that much from our standpoint, considering all of the other prospects that we have to get in. I love saying we, like I'm in the front office or something.
But hey, you've earned your stripes as an Orioles fan. Okay, come on. Yeah. I sat there when they were freaking starting Marquise Grissom. Okay, you were living in New York when Raul Ibanez was hitting home runs. You've earned it. But
right.
Listen to the names you didn't say. You didn't say Heston Kjerstad,
yeah, untouchable.
You didn't say Colton Cowser. You didn't say Jackson Holiday. You
No,
didn't say Kobe Mayo.
no.
And Samuel Samuel Basello, I think is his name, or the big catching prospect. Anyway,
Yeah,
like their top elite prospects are still in the organization, and you got an all-star pitcher in your rotation now.
yeah, Cy Young winner. I mean, we're very,
Yeah.
very excited about this. I mean, I had Corbin Burnes on my fantasy team his rookie season, and he was excellent then. And yeah, I mean, this is very exciting. He's only got 1 year left on his contract, so he's eligible for free agency after this first year in Baltimore. So that's one thing that they were saying they didn't want to do, which is why the Orioles have been linked to Dylan Cease throughout the offseason, because he has 2 more years left on the contract. But all of that was before the billionaires came and bought the team. So who knows what spending is going to be like in Charm City. I'm very, very excited, Sully. I'm giddy right now. I can't wait.
Well, there's another thing. Let's say he gives you it's like Kawhi Leonard with the Toronto Raptors, or Pudge Rodriguez with the Florida Marlins, or
Right.
Jack Morris with the Minnesota Twins, where they're there for 1 year, they deliver the big cheese, and they head off. Just psychologically for the city and for the aura of the franchise, to say, even if he's only there 1 year, what does that mean? The message you're sending to the fans, the message you're sending to the organization, the message you're sending to the prospects and the Jackson Holidays and the Adley Rutschmans, who you want to give a sense that, yeah, we're going to try to win. You're at least saying, hey, we're putting a stake in. And even if he's only here 1 year, Dylan Cease, no, we're going to Corbin freaking Burnes.
Yeah.
And maybe a rejuvenated Orioles team, and Burnes looks around and say, hey, this isn't half bad.
Yeah, I mean, by all reports, it's a really fun clubhouse. All these kids came up together. I mean, we have one of the youngest teams in baseball. No one is really going to be leaving anytime soon. So it looks like what used to be a little sliver of a window of opportunity, with the team having won 101 games last year in the AL East. It's true. Maybe the AL East last year had a few chinks in the armor, if you will. But still, I mean, it's a tough division no matter how you slice it. And, the Orioles were dominant even against, the arch rivals and everything. So this is exciting. I mean, it's just more fun when everybody's good in the division. So that's what it looks like it's going to be again this year. And the Orioles are going to be, just as good as anybody.
I'm going to bring something else up, which is one of the underrated things about moves like this. And I'm going to bring up a couple of weird examples, okay? But the consensus was when the Angels signed Albert Pujols for a contract that just expired, it was considered to be a failure because he was not the Albert Pujols that he was in St. Louis. However, Mike Trout has said over and over again, having Albert Pujols in that clubhouse, having a guy who's been there and done that while he was a rookie, while he was coming up, was invaluable to him. That you don't always know the effect of these veterans who have been there and done that on some of the young players. I read that Dwight Gooden, when he had his dynamic beginning to his career with the Mets, credited Mike freaking Torres.
The veteran presence.
The guy who Red Sox fans know as the guy who led up the Bucky Dent home run, but he had a very long, solid career. He pitched the complete game shutout to clinch a World Series for the Yankees, and having him there kind of allowed him to kind of settle in, taught him a few things here or there. Corbin Burnes, you put a Corbin Burnes in the rotation, but what effect is that going to have on like a Grayson Rodriguez, who you're hoping will be a big ace, but even if he's only there as a transient over short term, the effect that he may have on some of the young pitchers that are there may be invaluable.
Yeah, and this is something that, you do hear managers talk about. You like to have some veteran guys, some journeymen. I mean, but I don't even think that Corbin Burnes falls into that category. He is a current superstar.
He's a star, yeah.
But compared with the Orioles, he's quite old. So he's been around a long time. And, it's kind of like for you and me, like I'm sure you were there in New York once in a while, some superstar comedian would stop by the club.
Yeah.
and everybody would say, "Oh my God, Dave Chappelle's here tonight," or Jerry Seinfeld just walked in. Kind of makes everybody around them better, just because you're in the presence of someone who's already gotten to where you're trying to get. And I feel like these young, hungry Orioles that are trying to learn the ropes on the job. They just got called up last year, or some of them will be called up this year for the first time from the minors to the show. And when they're there, to see somebody like a Cy Young Award winner, or somebody that's put up the kind of career numbers that Corbin Burnes has already put up, is just going to make them want to say, well, look, I belong on the same team with this guy. It's going to make everyone better. Now, I don't know Corbin Burnes personally and what kind of clubhouse guy he's going to be. Like, some guys are quiet, some guys are really loud vocal leaders. I don't really know like how he's going to fit in with the team, but I'm sure that they're all going to find their chemistry, because that really seems to be one of Brandon Hyde's strengths as a manager, is managing the different personalities on the team. And I'm excited to see exactly how he fits in with what is already an amazing clubhouse.
I got to give Brandon Hyde a lot of credit. I just thought he was Jim Riggleman 2.0. Just that generic generic manager that you put in, like going, oh God, he's collecting a check. And I have to say, I've been really impressed by how he's been with the team.
Yeah, I mean, from the first time he did a press conference or whatever, and I saw him doing some interviews with like the Baltimore Sun or wherever else. And I was like, he seems like he understands the assignment here.
Yeah.
I had a lot of confidence in him compared with some of the other managers. Although I have to say, Sully, I was very sad to see Buck Showalter leave, because I thought he was doing a pretty good job with the limited talent that he had in his time in Baltimore. He didn't really get a fair chance. I mean, if you don't have players, he's not a magician. They just really didn't have the team back then. But yeah, these guys have put together quite a squad. It's going to be pretty good for years to come, I think.
Before we go on my final break here, just remember, the Yankees got rid of Showalter. They won the World Series the next year. The Diamondbacks got rid of Showalter. They won the World Series the next year. The Rangers got rid of Showalter. They're in the World Series back-to-back just a couple of years later. The Orioles got rid of Showalter.
Here we go.
And so what we're seeing is the Mets and Orioles are going to meet each other in the World Series. Go bet on that. And hey, speaking of bets, let's talk a little bit about FanDuel. FanDuel is the official sports book of the National Football League. And hey, sorry, do you care about the Ravens or no? Are you a Ravens guy?
Not really. No,
Okay.
they're fine. Whatever.
Okay. Well, obviously, Clayton Fletcher is all broken up about the Ravens not getting to the Super Bowl. But happy Super Bowl to all those who celebrate from FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. If you're like me, and I know I am, Super Bowl Sunday is all about getting the best seat in the couch, pigging out, and making some super bets. I am pulling for the Niners. Why? Well, I got so many family members up in the Bay Area. Why not give them some happiness? It's not like the Chiefs need 3 Super Bowls in 5 years. That being said, FanDuel has so many ways to end your season with a W, or 2, or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win the Super Bowl 58, LVII, but FanDuel has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com to sign up. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the National Football League. Got an interesting comment in the comment section. I want to bring this up. An everyday Sully, which is Scott Horstmeyer, said, as a Reds fan, I love this trade. The Reds have to be the favorite in the NL Central now. It's a domino effect.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, that's a fairly weak division, comparatively speaking. And, having an ace pitcher out of it has to be good news for all the other teams in the Central. True.
By the way, Nomadic Brian is a diehard Orioles fan, and he's coming in. So the Orioles have me on YouTube all day. I can't keep up. Yeah, it's been a wild few days. And so we went from the same listener says we went from, well, I guess not much is going to happen to what? Whoa. Yeah, I know. Exactly. It was, you could get the bends going up and down this fast,
It had been an incredibly quiet off season in Baltimore. And Sully, a lot of us were thinking what you said earlier, like, man, all they need to do is get a pitcher. We're like really one ace away from really contending even more so this year than we were last year. And I can't believe they're not going to pull the trigger on any kind of trade. They're not going to make anything happen. Like, we've been waiting and waiting and waiting. Here it's already February, and then boom. It all happens. Yeah.
Randall Fracas is one of my, if I mispronounce your name, Randall, I apologize. I've never said it out loud until just now. He says, who pitches opening day now, Burnes or Bradish?
Well, I believe they'll give it to Kyle. I mean, Bradish had a great season last year. I think he's probably earned it.
Yeah, they tend to do that, right? They tend to not have a star pitcher's opening day. I know the Red Sox started Pedro when they acquired him, but most of the time it's like it's almost like the honor, like, okay, you were our guy last year and we're gonna give you the shot.
Yeah, make the new guy prove himself, even though he's already proven himself in Milwaukee. Let's make him prove himself here too.
Or maybe just throw a curveball everyone, start Tyler Wells. I mean, who knows? Just sort of like get some.
I'm a John Means guy. We have pitching. We do have pitching.
Yeah, and this is why it's so great. I mean, I had a similar thing when I talked about the Dodgers when I said, hey, the Ohtani move was great, but he's not pitching this year and you still need to pitch. And I was a little bit leery of Glasnow being their big pitching acquisition, but the nanosecond they acquired Yamamoto, it meant everyone else could take a step down and it suddenly became depth. That's what's so great about this move with Burnes, that they got a Cy Young contender without giving up, as I said, their top 3 or 4. They're still with the organization. And now, whether you got Bradish or Rodriguez, whoever, you've taken a little bit of pressure off of them. And I'm going to make a weird analogy here, but when the Braves acquired Charlie Leibrandt back in 1991, who had been there, nowhere near the quality of Corbin Burnes, but he was a solid starter for the Royals, put him on the squad, took all the pressure off the rest of the pitchers, and suddenly Glavine, Smoltz, and Avery relaxed and pitched great. If he can have that effect on Grayson Rodriguez, that's like having 2 aces.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll have 3 aces. A few years ago, as that listener that just commented, that's the diehard Orioles fan, knows, I mean, John Means was our ace.
That's true.
So, I mean, we might end up having obviously being uber optimistic here, but we could have a pitching staff. If everyone steps up and continues to improve, we could have a top 2 or 3 pitching staff in all of baseball if things break right. It's
certainly in the American League. Certainly in the American League. I mean, Tampa, they're going to either sign a guy who had an 8 ERA with Colorado last year, who then pitched to a 1 ERA because that's what they do, or they're just kind of like those robots in that episode of The Mandalorian that kind of walked up and started punching at the door. All these guys coming up from the farm, like, oh, there's another one. How do they get them? I don't get how they get them.
Yeah, okay, Tampa is pesky. They really are, and that's another very low payroll team in a small market. But they're smart. They're smart. By the way, I'll be in Tampa next weekend, Super Bowl weekend, at Side Splitters Comedy Club. Big plug there for me.
Well, go see Clayton Fletcher. He's really funny, and he's been funny since the Orioles were bad.
What, last year?
Sorry, that didn't come out right. And I think Chandler Bryant, Orioles fan, says it best when he says, let's go.
Go.
I'm going to bring out today's trivia question, which is Orioles-centric. Every time the Orioles have won either the American League Championship Series or the World Series, the pitcher on the mound to clinch it threw a complete game, except once. Now, don't you answer, Clayton, because I bet you know. But who is the only person in Orioles history to clinch either a League Championship Series or a World Series out of the bullpen? I'm not saying Division Series. I think they've only won the Division Series twice, if I'm not mistaken. And 3 times. 96, 97, and 14. Okay, and they used a reliever in each one of those. Okay, But the League Championship Series and World Series always had a complete game victory except once. That's your trivia question. We're going to answer it tomorrow's show, which will probably be either me in awe of what the Orioles are doing, me whining about the A's being terrible, or, I don't know, me talking about the new Milwaukee Brewers hat or something weird. Clayton Fletcher, where can people find you online?
I'm on everything at Clayton Comic. All one word, Clayton Comic. I appreciate you having me on, Sully. It's always great to talk with you.
I know, and I'm so glad that we just fortuitously planned this out for today. That's why I said I was going to record it. I said, no. We got to go live. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. A quick reminder again that Locked On has Locked On Sports Today. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week on streaming on YouTube, covering the top sports stories with local experts or the national shows like this one. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube. Subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. I'm foaming at the mouth. This has been Locked On MLB. He's Clayton Fletcher. My name is Paul Francis Sullivan. Please, like Clayton has been doing for literally decades, call me Sully.